Okay, so welcome to our presentation. The title of our behavior change replication project is The Effects of White Noise on Off-Task Behaviors and Work Completed in University Graduate Students. I just want to introduce ourselves really quick. We have Haley Clark, Nonya Gali, Kelsey Long, Autumn McGee, Joy Thompson, and I'm Bridget Scott. So the purpose of our study is to determine if white noise has an effect on off-task behavior. Previous studies have concluded that the presentation of white noise could decrease off-task behaviors and enhance learning and work completion. We replicated a study by Cook, Bradley Johnson, and Johnson, who studied the effects of white noise on off-task behaviors and academic responding in children with ADHD in 2014. They studied 3 participants diagnosed with ADHD, all struggling with academic tasks, and the participants were 8 to 9 years old. The sessions took place in the participants' classrooms 2 to 3 days per week for 15-minute sessions of independent work assignments. Cook, Bradley, Johnson, and Johnson used Sony Fontopia headphones and Brookstone Tranquil Moments Jr. white noise generators for their intervention conditions. They targeted 3 types of off-task behavior. One was verbal behavior, such as talking to a peer or a teacher about something unrelated to the assignment. The second was motor, which is walking away from their assignment. And passive was looking at something other than the work, materials that they were using. They also collected data on the percent work completed and the percent work completed correctly. For off-task behavior, observers used 15-second momentary time sampling for each 15-minute session, marking behavior exhibited at the conclusion of every 15-second interval and converting it to a percentage by dividing the number of intervals off task by the total number of intervals times 100. The study was a single subject reversal or withdrawal design with 2 intervention comparison phases. The conditions were as listed: the baseline condition, the headphones only condition with no white noise presented, headphones with white noise presented, and a return to baseline. And then the final reintroduction phase was whichever phase between the 2 interventions was most successful in reducing behaviors. They collected inter-observer agreement for 30% of sessions for off-task behavior and 100% of sessions for work completed. The mean overall agreement that they came up with was 93% and 98% respectively. The results showed that the levels of off-task behavior were lower for the white noise presentation than for baseline and headphones only conditions. Off-task behaviors levels remained consistent and variable across the baseline and headphone only conditions, so no clear nor consistent differences were present during across conditions for work completed. Levels were moderate to high. So they concluded that white noise may be a useful option for reducing off-task behavior in individuals with ADHD. Some limitations that they listed were that conditions were changed before stability in data was established, and the functions of the participants' off-task behavior were unknown. They decided that future research should be conducted using participants who were not medicated for ADHD symptoms, as the participants in this study were. Different magnitudes of white noise should be studied, and a range of tasks completed should be included, with challenging and less challenging work. They also want the acceptability of white noise over other commonly used interventions for decreasing off-task behavior to be evaluated. Now I'm going to pass it on to Joy for the literature review.
Okay, I'm going to first start by talking about the history of white noise. Experiments on sounds and sound frequencies started in the late 1800s, and Thomas Edison actually discovered white noise during one of these experiments. White noise is actually all the noises put together on the audible spectrum. It's comparable to the spectrum of light. There is white noise, pink noise, and brown noise, and these are all from mathematical algorithms that people have made. Since the 1800s, it's come a long way. We have apps on our phones now that play white noise. They are used like as a sound shield, so you are just focused in on something, or ambient noise. Some are even marketed for relaxation. But the actual benefits of white noise that have been studied, it has been found to help aid in insomnia and concentration issues in both adults and children. One study in 2017 found a 38% decrease in sleep onset latency when the adults listened to white noise before they went to sleep. So this means they went to sleep faster with the white noise instead of the natural environment noises around. Another benefit of white noise is to help with inattentiveness. There was a study in 2016 that was really interesting about they compared white noise to stimulant medication for children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is abbreviated to ADHD. So they actually found that the medication for the ADHD group had no effect, which is super interesting. And they found white noise had an increase on the speed of on-task performance for the children with ADHD. The last thing I'm going to talk about is improvement in cognitive functions in children and adults when listening to white noise. There was a study in 2016 that did show white noise could improve the cognitive functions of children with ADHD. That study kind of talked about how each child has environmental factors that can easily disturb them, and the white noise can act as the sound shield. And then there was another study on adults in 2019 that found that white noise can actually improve the responding in an adult, not just children. So now Kelsey is going to talk about the actual study we did.
So for our replication study, all 6 of us were the participants. We're all taking online graduate courses at Ball State University. So that's myself, Haley, Nanye, Autumn, Bridget, and Joy. We all live in a variety of different states, but we all do live on the East Coast. We all often struggle to stay on task while we're doing homework and studying for our exams for our online courses, and we're all looking for ways to improve on our off-task behavior and also completing our homework assignments. For these settings, each of us conducted our 15 minutes of independent work at home in a natural setting, and we did this 2 to 3 days per week. There weren't any specific time frames where we conducted this. We defined off-task behavior as looking at something other than the computer screen, which would be passive off-task, standing or walking away from the computer, which would be motor off-task, or talking to another person, which would be verbal off-task. Examples would be looking at our phone, staring away from our computer. Non-examples would be looking at our keyboard, staring at our computer screen, or down at our workspace. For the materials that we used in our replication study, we used our smartphones, which would either be an iPhone or an Android across all conditions. We use earbuds or headphones for both interventions, so for the white noise phases and the headphones only. We used an app called My Noise app, which can be found on both an iPhone and an Android, or even just on the website, We use that for our white noise at the default settings. We use a computer across all phases. We use a data collection form to keep track of all the intervals that we were off task. And we use our Cooper textbook and the Cooper guided notes for the 15 minutes of independent work that we did, and then also a pen. This is what our data collection form looked like. You could put the date of the session number that you were on, the phase that you were on, percent of work completed, and also percent off task. It was divided up into 60 boxes for 60 intervals. Each box represents 15 seconds. And then at the bottom, you can see that you would put a V if it was verbal off task, a P if it was passive off task, an M if it was motor off task, or if there was no off task behavior, you would just put a 0. For our data collection, we did 15-minute independent work sessions. We video recorded them while we worked on our Cooper guided notes. Each of us would then review our own video and conduct 15-second momentary time sampling for the off-task behaviors using the data collection form on the previous slide. After that, the percentage of off-task behaviors were calculated by dividing the number of intervals of any type of behavior observed, so whether that was verbal, passive, or any of the other ones, by the total number of intervals, and then that was to a percentage. The percentage of work completed were calculated by dividing the number of blanks filled in by 25, and then you would also convert that to a percentage. Our design was a reversal or withdrawal design. So it was A, B, C, A, C, or B. So we had 2 intervention phases. A was the baseline condition where we didn't use white noise or headphones. And then we had condition B, which was just headphones. Condition C, which was headphones plus white noise. And then we had a return to baseline where we again would use no white noise or headphones. And then C again was headphones plus white noise, and B headphones only. So the last phase we have C or B because it was determined by which intervention was more effective for you and showed a functional relation. So it could be different for each participant. And next we're going to talk about the actual conditions, and Haley will be doing that.
All right, so now I'm going to talk about the different phases of our study, the first of which is baseline condition A. As Kelsey kind of mentioned, for baseline, we didn't use any headphones or white noise. We completed 15-minute independent work sessions using Cooper book guided notes 2 to 3 times per week. During these sessions, we video recorded ourselves and then reviewed our own videos after and conducted 15-second momentary time sampling data for off-task behavior using the data form we showed on one of the previous slides. We also noted which type of off-task behavior was occurring, whether that be passive, motor, or verbal. And then next we calculated off-task behavior by dividing the number of intervals where any off-task behavior occurred by the total number of intervals, which was 60. Then multiplied that by 100 to get the percentage of off-task behavior. We also calculated percentage of work completed by dividing the number of blanks filled out on the guided notes by 25, which was the decided upon amount that we needed to be completed during our sessions. Then we multiplied that number by 100 to get the percent of work completed. We would then input our data into our own Excel sheet, which was converted to our individual line graphs. And at the end of the condition, we sent 30% of our recorded sessions and corresponding guided notes to a partner in our group for them to collect IOA data. So the next phase was the headphones only phase, condition B. For this phase, we used headphones or earbuds with no white noise or anything else playing through them and conducted the same procedures of 15-minute self-recorded sessions 2 to 3 times a week. We reviewed the videos ourselves again using 15-second momentary time sampling To collect off-task behavior data, we calculated percentages of off-task behavior as well as work completed, and we recorded the data in Excel and sent 30% of our sessions to our IOA partner. Next was the headphones with white noise phase, condition C. For this phase, we used either headphones or earbuds and had white noise playing through an app on our phone while we recorded ourselves during the 15-minute work session using the Cooper guided notes. The rest of the procedure was the exact same as both the baseline and headphones only phases, where we collected momentary time sampling data as well as work completed data, put that data into Excel, and once again sent 30% of these sessions to our partner for IOA. So the next phase brought us back to condition A for withdrawal and return to baseline. The procedure for the phase was implemented exactly like the first baseline phase with no headphones or white noise. Data was collected the same way as previous phases and input into Excel as well as sent for IOA. The last phase was dependent on which phase worked better for each individual in our group, whether that be headphones only, condition B, or headphones and white noise, condition C. For every member of our group, besides one person, headphones with white noise, condition C, was most effective and therefore the last phase. This phase was implemented in the same way as the previous condition C. And for the one person who found the headphones only phase to be more effective for her, condition B was the last phase implemented, and the procedure was the exact same as the previous condition B. And I think next is Bridget again.
Okay, so we collected reliability data and calculated inter-observer agreement, as Haley said, for 30% of sessions for both off-task behavior and work completed. We used interval by interval IOA for the off-task behavior. We divided the number of intervals both observers recorded the same type of behavior or lack of behavior by the total number of intervals and converted to a percentage. For the work completed, we used total count IOA, where we divided the smaller percentage observed or calculated by one observer by the larger, divided the smaller by the larger, and converted to a percentage. Our IOA resulted in 89% mean overall agreement, ranging from 75 to 100% for off-task behaviors, and 100% overall agreement for work completed. To ensure that the interventions were implemented correctly throughout the entire study by all members, we made sure to discuss intervention implementation steps and address all questions and concerns at all group meetings. We also discussed the operational definitions of target behaviors and IOA procedures. We also completed a treatment fidelity checklist to be completed by all members for 30% of sessions. If during reliability data collection for IOA, a group member noticed that another member may not have been implementing the intervention correctly, the members then consulted and determined if IOA should be calculated on the treatment fidelity using the checklist. And here's a visual of our procedure fidelity checklist. We calculated the treatment fidelity by dividing the number of yeses by the number of yeses plus nos and converting it to a percentage. Correct intervention implementation was maintained throughout the study with 100% fidelity. Now let's take a look at our results and the member graphs individually.
Okay, so this is my graph. For my graph, relation seems to exist between the dependent variables and white noise presentation, as shown by a decrease of high magnitude between baseline and white noise condition, which was demonstrated with less magnitude and with the withdrawal and reintroduction conditions. White noise resulted in lower levels of off-task behavior as well as an increase in work completed, but a relation demonstrated between baseline and headphones only condition as shown by a change and level between conditions. There seems to be a relation between the level of off-task behavior and work completed, meaning as off-task behavior decreases with headphones and white noise conditions, the amount of work completed also increases. And the work completed levels did change consistently across similar conditions, showing that headphones and white noise may have had an effect on off-task behaviors.
Okay, so here's my graph, and variability in data was present across all conditions. Levels of off-task behavior and work completed remained consistent across all baseline and headphones-only conditions, showing no relation between the dependent variables and presentation of headphones only. There was an immediate decrease of high magnitude with the presentation of white noise. Levels remained consistent for the withdrawal condition and reintroduction of white noise condition, showing further evidence of a functional relation. Work completed levels were higher in the white noise condition than baseline and headphones only as well, meaning there may have been a relation between work completed and presentation of white noise.
So this is my graph. For my results, my last phase was white noise, and the results for my off-task behavior. So my off-task behavior level remained stable and consistent across baseline and headphones-only condition, which showed no apparent relation between the two. Levels was slightly lower for the white noise condition, showing that there might be a possible relation between off-task behavior and the presentation of white noise. This was also demonstrated again for the withdrawal and reintroduction conditions, where the off-task behavior level for white noise was slightly lower. For my work completed results, if you look at the graph, the work completed was highly variable, but remained constant with a somewhat increasing trend across conditions, revealing that there wasn't really a relation between work completed and the independent variables.
All right, so first we can look at my work completed levels. There were variable and consistent across all conditions except when white noise was present. So this shows that there may be a relation between my work completed and white noise being present. And then moving on to off-task behavior levels, it seems they decreased slightly from baseline to headphones only condition and had a higher magnitude for the white noise condition. So this change in levels remained consistent for the withdrawal and reintroduction of conditions. And this just shows that there may have been a functional relation between off-task behaviors and the introduction of white noise. And lastly, I also had some overlapping data present between multiple conditions, which may indicate the presence of confounding variables.
Okay. My graphs displayed lower levels of off-task behaviors consistent across all conditions after the initial baseline condition. By calculating averages, I was able to determine that the levels of off-task behavior were slightly lower for the headphones-only condition than for the white noise condition. These levels were repeated for the reintroduction or final phase, although the withdrawal condition did not return to original baseline levels. Work completed levels remained high, variable, and consistent across all conditions, showing no relation between this dependent variable and the independent variables.
My graph shows a change of high magnitude in the levels of off-task behavior between the baseline condition and both the interventions. So this shows a relation between the two. My off-task behavior during the white noise conditions was lower than just wearing the headphones, and this shows white noise may decrease off-task behavior more effectively for me. The level changes between my baseline and white noise remained consistent during the withdrawal and reintroduction of both of the conditions. This indicates a functional relation between white noise and off-task behaviors. Across all my conditions, work completed levels remained variable. And now Nane is going to talk about the results.
Okay, so according to a visual analysis of the participants' graphs, a possible functional relation was displayed for off-task behaviors between the baseline condition and the white noise condition for all participants. Bridget's, Haley's, and Joy's off-task behavior results showed a functional relation between the baseline and the headphones only condition. And then Bridget, hers was the only one that showed slightly lower levels of off-task behavior in the headphones only condition, and instead of the white noise. Kelsey, Autumn, and myself showed consistency in levels across baseline and headphones only. And then Autumn, Haley, and my results showed a possible functional relation between white noise and work completed, with changes in level between baseline and presentation of white noise. Kelsey and Bridget showed consistency and high variability across conditions for work completed, suggesting no relation for them. And Joy displayed high variability and levels of work completed with an increase followed by a decrease in trend across conditions. And then next we have conclusions. So we concluded that white noise may be effective in decreasing off-task behavior. Headphones may be effective in decreasing off-task behavior. And then white noise may be more effective in decreasing off-task behavior than headphones without the white noise. Headphones only and white noise showed a possible but inconsistent effect on work completed, which may be due to confounding variables discussed and limitations. So our future research should look into including consistency in settings, materials, and work to be completed to limit confounding variables and increase experimental control. Also, there could be more research on including participants with similar distractors in their setting, like kids versus no kids. And lastly, including research on the effect of noise canceling headphones on off-task behaviors.
All right, and so I'm going to talk about the limitations. I'm going to start with our biggest limitation, which was that group members were both participants and observers. So this just means that we recorded our sessions ourselves as well as taking data and acting as an observer. We knew that we were being recorded and we obviously knew the purpose of the study. So this made it difficult sometimes to stay focused on the actual work that we were trying to complete because we were overly conscious about our behavior throughout the session that we were recording. And then moving on, our next limitation was our dependent variable is different from the original study. Our study showed off-task behavior and number of items that were completed overall, whereas the original study measured those two variables as well as the number of correct items. Another limitation was that sessions were inconsistent. Some of us had to complete multiple sessions in one day just due to our schedules and time restraints of project deadlines. And then sessions overall were completed on different days as well as having different distractors due to being in our different home settings. We also completed different chapters of guided notes across the different session, where the original study, the participants completed the same assignments. And then adding to our limitations, we also did not have as much time as the original study. As mentioned before, we were only able to complete at most 18 sessions, where the original study had 20 to 25 sessions per participant. And that just allowed them to have more data and then to have longer phases as well. And lastly, we had varied headphones, decibel levels, and white noise. So some of us had earbuds and others were using large headphones, which covered the whole surface of the ear. So these would just have the potential of blocking out more noise versus smaller earbuds. And then we also had different volume levels set across participant sessions. There was really no way of setting our volume to the same level since we were all using different devices and we're not all together. And there were also different white noise sounds. So we were using the same app, but within the app there were different sounds and song settings that participants used, whereas the original study had the same headphones and the same noise generator, which you could set at a certain decibel level that was the same across participants. And then next we have a list of our references that we use throughout the replication process. And with that concludes our presentation, and we would like to now open it up for any questions.
All right, fantastic, guys. That was a fabulous presentation. So very, very well done. I wrote a few notes as we were going through. So I'll give you a little bit of feedback and then ask a couple questions, and whoever feels inclined can field those questions. But I will say that's probably the most thorough list of limitations I may have ever seen in a presentation. So you guys really thought long and hard about all the different things that might have contributed to some variation, and also things that future researchers should consider as well. So that was very well done. I had a couple comments, and one is related to the limitations that you guys mentioned, and I'm glad that you did, because I have more groups choosing this study to replicate, and I think it is one that is particularly challenging when you are both participant and the experimenter. And so there are really two things that I think would be good mentioning in the write-up, and that is what's known as expectation effects. So you guys, not only did you know the purpose of their study, but you also knew what the results were too. And so some of you guys who had those beautiful graphs that looked exactly like the study, when you have enhanced performance in the white noise condition, I'd be curious to know if you felt as though, because you were so aware of what the results were in the original study, could it have possibly influenced your data? So for a couple of you guys who have those beautiful graphs, or did you truly feel as though the white noise was helping you increase your on-task behavior?
I can kind of speak to that a little bit. I definitely felt influenced by the study, and also just the knowing that I was being recorded in general. During the baseline condition, it was kind of stressful and hectic for the first few of actually being recorded. By, the intervention stage, I was hyper aware of what was happening. And so I definitely felt like knowing the results of the actual study influenced mine more so than the white noise itself.
Anyone else?
I had the same experience. I felt like as I was going, since I knew their results, kind of as I was doing my session, it was in the back of my head like, oh, should I be off task more? Or so that definitely played a factor into all of it.
Okay, for mine, I just want to say, I love white noise, and I wish I had discovered it before, because I have 4 kids, one on the way, and I have a lot of noise in my background, and it's very hard for me to study or to read. But when I put those headphones and I had that white noise blasting, I couldn't hear anything. And my kids would come up to me, and I'm like, "Oh, have you been calling me?" And I actually use it now to do my work. So.
And that's what I've seemed to find with some of these projects, where there are some folks who say, I was probably very influenced by the study, and then some other folks who were like, wow, this has really helped me with my studying behavior, and I'm going to continue doing it. And then there have been a couple of folks who actually it made them have more off-task behavior compared to the headphones alone. So as you guys see, it really is a case by case basis in terms of what the effects are. In general, it seems like the results tend to support the original study in that there can be an enhanced effect, but not for everybody. And so that's why it's great to be able to tease it out looking at each individual graph. And one of the things, so you guys mentioned the expectation effects, is the reactivity that when you're recording your own behavior, that you may have run into as well. So I think that's also worth mentioning in the discussion of the write-up. I had a question about how you guys did the momentary time sampling. There's some variations in how you can do time sampling. I've done it in some research, and you can either, the way it's typically done is you can either take a snapshot at the very end of the interval, or you can actually watch the last second or two of the interval. And that really sets it apart from like partial interval recording. So I was just curious how you guys did the momentary time sampling.
We actually watched the videos and used a timer that went off every 15 seconds with our apps on your phone. So we watched the videos and every 15 seconds watched the last few seconds and recorded whether there was behavior.
Yeah, and that's important to specify in the method section that it was the last second of the interval that was being observed. So, because if not, it sounds similar to partial interval recording, and so you want to be precise about exactly how you did it. But it sounds like you guys did it correctly, so that's great. And let's see, what else did I write down? So you have everything in the presentation when it comes to what should be in the introduction, but I do have some suggestions for how to set up the introduction and the purpose for the write-up, and I think this is good for all groups to know. So typically what you'll see initially is just sort of the initial paragraph is sort of citing why this is an important behavior to target. So you guys can start with that as opposed to starting with the original, the study that you guys replicated. So why is it, important to increase on-task behavior? And what was the other one? And increasing your productivity or your work completed or studying behavior. Then you'll go through the what has the previous researchers have done. And usually what I like to see is talk about a couple of the studies in terms of the related research next. And then the second to last paragraph of the introduction is where you talk about the study that you guys are planning to replicate. So you kind of have that detailed. And then the last paragraph of your introduction should be your purpose, which is essentially what is you guys replicating that specific study with graduate students who are living in various locations on the East Coast to see if it would generalize to this type of a population as opposed to, it was, I think, several children with ADHD. And so that kind of will help the flow of the intro. I think for the presentation, it's fine as long as you have all that information, but I think that kind of sets you up nicely then to go right into the method section. A lot of groups will start right with like the original study, but by the time I'm kind of done with the introduction, I may forget exactly the details of that. So if you set it up with why it's important, talk about what previously has been done, then the study to be replicated and the purpose, I think it's a good flow for the introduction of the manuscript. I had a chuckle because you guys held each other very, very accountable for this thing. If you guys noticed that it seemed as though one person was not following the protocol, you guys shouldn't say threatened, but you brought up the idea of having IOA on the treatment integrity. And it's You got it. You're going on the honor system here when it comes to checking off a treatment integrity checklist on your own behavior. But you guys demonstrated a strong understanding of treatment integrity. And a lot of researchers will collect IOA on treatment integrity as well. You don't want to just rely on one person scoring it. We didn't require that for this project, but I was impressed that you guys even had that as a possibility if you felt as though somebody may have been either just not accurately following the protocol, or if you wanted to just double check the integrity of them putting the intervention into place. So nice job on that. Let's see, anything else I wanted to mention? Oh, I also have one other question and then we'll wrap up. But a really cool thing about this project is that you guys get to practice scoring behavior. In a lot of behavior analytic research, you're actually scoring behaviors in sessions. But for a lot of these projects, we do like a permanent product IOA method because they're using step counts or something. They're just sending screenshots. But when you have practice scoring actual behavior, you will run into some challenges occasionally. And sometimes you're going to have to do booster sessions because you may have had a different understanding of the operational definitions. And so did you guys run into any challenges when you were scoring behavior? Did you have to do booster training sessions, any sort of clarification? I was curious about that.
I know me and Nani did because I didn't use my computer at all just to record myself. So when I would look up at it, it was off task. And like for most of the girls, they did it on their computer. So we had to clarify that between us. So it looked like I had less off task when I really was off task. So we had to clarify that between each other for our IOA and stuff.
Yeah. And yep.
I was just going to say, so just recording myself in general, when you do the 15-second, the 15 momentary time sampling, the second goes so fast that I would have to oftentimes rewatch my videos, play on task, play off task, because the second just flies by. So I'm like, oh no, I missed it. So I rewatch a couple of my videos many times.
Yeah, and a lot of times if you're just looking at eye contact too, it's hard to know exactly what people are looking at. So it can get to be very challenging. And I think one thing that you guys mentioned is that you were all kind of studying in either different positions. Some were on the computer, some were not. And so your operational definitions kind of had to be individualized, so that, and that's okay. That happens in research studies, but sometimes when you come up with a general definition, you have to tweak it as you run into some issues with the IOA, because you realize that if the same definition may not apply for all of the participants. So any other comments on that? No, but that was good. And I think it's really great to practice scoring behavior, because you guys are ever involved in future research that will entail probably scoring actual behavior. So, all right, well, very well done. You guys can stop recording now, and we're all set.
Stop.